Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 43 of the British Boxing Blog podcast. Coming to you on a Sunday afternoon, straight after Lewis Ritson, Miguel Vazquez last night. Stephen here from Gateshead, and Andrew is also on the line as well from County Durham.
Hi,
Andrew, how are you?
I'm all right. I love how Ritson Vasquez takes precedent over Lomachenko Lopez for you, but
sorry. That's very different. I know.
Priorities, mate. It's fine.
No, it's a good point. Actually, what have you thought that was? I haven't seen that yet, but I was shocked when I woke up this morning seeing that Lopez had beat him on points, which again
on the pulse as ever. I think I said in the group.
That wasn't the way I thought that would go, though. I thought Lomachenko late or a stoppage, and I thought Lopez's chance was one of them, big shots. I didn't think he would sort of play him at his own game and beat him at his own game. Is that how it went, or?
Yeah, I mean, I saw pretty much every prediction in the build-up, just what you said there. Like Lomachenko's going to outbox him and potentially sort of stop him, almost make him quit, frustrate him, whatever you want to say. And then, obviously, as you said, like Lopez is the sort of the bigger man, the bigger puncher. It was a case of, right, his best chances, if he clips him, he can hurt him, he can knock him out and drop him. And that was like the predictions from the fighters as well. Lomachenko said he was going to get to him late. Lopez said he didn't see it going past 6 rounds, and it just didn't play out like that at all. It was a really interesting fight, actually. Like when you often get two top level boxers against each other, there's sort of a bit of a feeling out period. And I think like with Lomachenko, I don't know whether it was because his tactics were to take it late. Chris Algeria in the commentary was sort of alluding to that, saying, well, like Lomachenko, he's going to get him late. He's measuring him. He's sort of in the analysis stage of the fight, and he's taking a few rounds. But before you knew it, it was like round 7 or 8, and it was still following that sort of pattern. Like Lomachenko honestly was in the most respectful way possible, did nothing for the best part of 6 or 7 rounds. He defensively looked all right. He was moving. His head was out, off center, as it always is, and there was just nothing coming back from him. I don't know whether he took a couple of shots early on, like in the first round, and he's maybe felt the power, and it's made him go a little bit more cautious than he sort of anticipated, because like both Lomachenko's, his dad Anatoly and Vasil himself, will know more about boxing than I ever will, even if I live till I'm 100. Like, I'm not going to sit here and question them and their tactics and their knowledge and their strategy. But I can't understand, if that was the game plan, why you would leave it until like the 8th round before being a bit more proactive and a bit more aggressive and offensive. It was bizarre to watch. I mean, full credit to Lopez, because I didn't think he would win. I thought Lomachenko would win wide on points. But from the start, Lopez, he was the more aggressive, but he wasn't reckless with it. He was using the jab. He was very purposely targeting the body with either the hook or the straight right hand. And it just seemed to not necessarily stun Lomachenko in a physical sense, but just made him think twice about what he was doing. And by that point, by the halfway point, you could argue it was like an absolute whitewash on the cards.
Wow.
I gave maybe Lomachenko one of the first 7 rounds, possibly. And then like 8, 9, 10, 11, he did come back into it, and he was, as I say, a bit busier, a bit more active. There weren't hugely dominant rounds for either person in those, but they were Lomachenko's best rounds. And then like the 12th, Teofimo Lopez came out again, very aggressive, with landing the bigger shots, the more eye-catching shots, and more of them as well. It wasn't like he was landing one for every sort of 4 or 5 jabs that Loma landed. Lopez was outworking him as well, and like I've got no issue with. I mean, one scorecard, I think, give him 11 rounds. I don't think it was that wide, but
yeah,
if you only gave Lomachenko 3 or 4, I can definitely see that. So new king, new champion in town. Like,
you think that's mad? Because he's like, honestly, he's been untouchable even after he's like Salido defeating that. He's been untouchable in boxing fans' eyes, like Lomachenko. It's like Lomachenko and Usyk, like no one really says a bad word against. Like, they're from like this other stratosphere of Eastern European boxing brilliance, and I'm not saying that's now over. I just mean like he's actually got beat in a boxing match, and like it's proved that he is human, and you know, like there's a lot of love that goes his way and stuff. Do you think is that the blueprint then? Is that like get a big aggressive sort of fighter to fight him at his own game and take the fight to him? Do you think, or is that the way you beat him? Rough him up maybe a bit.
Everything I'm about to say is with a massive dose of hindsight and after the event, because as I just said before, I thought Lomachenko was going to be too skillful, too quick for him. But I think the size and the strength's only a part of it. Like, you could put plenty of bigger lightweights in there with Lomachenko and he would absolutely destroy them. And
that's fair. Yeah.
When you watch it, like, you've got to sort of admire the speed and the skill of Lopez as well. I'm saying that he was the more aggressive and he was landing the more eye-catching shots. But his hand speed was up there with Lomachenko's as well. Like, very, very fast. Whether he was targeting the body or the head, it was a bit more purpose about it as well. But like, I think for 90%, even 99% of even the lightweights, where you'd say they're going to have size and strength advantages over Lomachenko, like, they're not going to be able to do what Lopez did. I'd still favour Lomachenko against most boxers in the world, essentially. I mean, he's small enough where he probably could get himself back down to 130, but it's what fights are there for him. Do
you think, like, again, like I say, I don't want to rewrite history in that, but do you think, like, if you look close enough, there has been sort of maybe warning signs there at lightweight for him that, you know, maybe his best days did come at them low weights, and maybe, I don't know, like, even... Yeah,
I mean...
You know, like, he went down against Linares.
That's the one, isn't it? Most of the people making a case for Lopez were saying, well, if he lands the right hand like Linares did, then he's a much bigger, harder hitter than him. It's going to be sort of lights out type thing. But not even many of the ones tipping Lopez thought he would do it over 12 rounds. And as I say, I don't know what's gone on. I'm not making excuses, but I don't think, like, against anyone you can give away that many rounds. Obviously, just mentioning his compatriot Usyk there, like, against Bellew, he basically did concede like 2 or 3 of the first 3-4 rounds even, but he was making Bellew work and he was putting him on the back foot, and Bellew did a great analysis of that during the filler of the match.
That was really good, and I really enjoyed listening to that.
Yeah, and like those sorts of things, you think, he's done that, and even though he's not been really aggressive and thrown lots of punches, his movement and the punches he is throwing, the feints he's thrown in there, those sorts of things are putting the opponent under pressure, and it's that high level tactical chess match in the ring that's going on. Whereas honestly, like the Lomachenko Lopez, it wasn't. Lopez was comfortable throughout the first half of the fight. He had next to nothing coming back to deal with, and that allowed him to stamp his authority on it. Whether that happened because he was asserting himself so well and using his footwork and his feints and his jab and his punches, maybe that's what's then caused Lomachenko to be, as I say, a little bit more reluctant, a bit too cautious. But being the smaller man, like, even if you're going to take someone into these deep waters that we talk about, and he wanted to sort of get him in there and drown him late on, he didn't do enough to make Lopez tire later on. If he'd started a bit earlier, who knows what would happen. But like, even when Lomachenko was winning the rounds, Lopez wasn't necessarily in bother. And as it's like, the 12th round was arguably his best round of the fight. He came back, and in my bizarre little brain, it reminded me a lot of Quigg and Frampton in that sense. It was like Lopez was a lot more in control, I think, even than Frampton was. But it was very much like one fighter wasn't really doing anything, and the other one was just sort of winning those rounds by default. And then had that when you think, no, actually the tide's turning a bit, he had that really strong finish to just sort of cement it on the cards. And like, I think I did score it as I was watching it, but I haven't jotted it down. But like, I think I might have given Lomachenko the 5th round possibly, and then maybe 9, 10, and 11 possibly. It was something like that. I think overall it was like 8 rounds to 4 for Lopez. I could see 7-5 possibly. Could see it a bit wider than that as well. But like, it was really interesting to watch. I mean, someone asked on Twitter, like, where does Lomachenko go from here? And it's like, well, wherever he wants, really, because, you know, he could hang them up and he's still going to go down as like potential Hall of Famer, like 3-weight world champion.
Yeah, that's true.
In very few fights, like he could still, as I've alluded to there, compete with most of the lightweight division, if not all of them. Like I'd still favour him over Devin Haney, Gervonta Davis, like the other sort of ones.
But he's already beat some names. Do you know what I mean? He's already got Linares on there, and who else he got on there? You know, he's got some good.
Like Gary Russell, like I know Rigo was like low in sort of, he was dragged up in weight, but like he beat him. Luke Campbell,
again, like you say, lightweight, you don't get
him in, like, you know, in this great esteem of everyone else. But like again, like, it's good win, and I think what you said at the start, like he hasn't seemed troubled since that loss to Salido. Obviously, a couple of bits in there, but like he's rise through the weights. It was like 3 or 4 fighters in a row that just had enough against them and like couldn't touch him. And
but like you say though, you're saying, you know, he beat most lightweights, and like you don't get that much better than obviously Linares a couple of years, but whatever. And Campbell, do you know what I mean? You look at the rest that he would beat almost everyone else. Do you know? He's just came up against Lopez, but that's a hell of a win for him. 23-year-old, like, and you know what? He's obviously he's been sort of bubbling under, I guess, sort of similar like Shakur Stevenson and those sort of top level American. I don't want to say prospects because he's obviously miles beyond that, but like it's mad because you can listen to that many podcasts in Fight Week, and you can do that much reading, and like you hear every single take possible. Do you know what I mean? And I've heard this week that, again, like you say, with the benefit of hindsight, and like, but going into it, who's his best win? Richard Comey. Do you know what I mean? Like, he was like sort of European level. He's beat Diego Magdaleno. Like, it's not gonna be. Do you know what I mean? His best win was against Richard Comey, who, solid, decent fighter, but you thought, oh, you know, your instinct was, oh, it'll be a step too far type of thing, but now he's sort of king of the world. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I didn't hear that apart from Tyson Fury. I didn't hear that many people sort of tipping. I think, to me, I thought Lomachenko points was an absolute steal at just under even money. And I didn't have a bet because I had an absolute shocker on all fronts yesterday. So my money had run out by that point. But I don't know, like he's took the leap now, and he's beat one of the greats. And God, like, where does he go from here? That's quite exciting as well, isn't it, for that age?
Yeah, like, youngest four belt holder, whatever that sort of means. I think people are trying to avoid saying undisputed because of this mess with the WBC franchise title, and like whether that's the route. But like, I mean, however you want to work that, like he's cleaned up. He's definitely the number one in the division. Like the Ring Magazine title was on the line as well. He's beat a pound for pound top bot. Many was like the number one pound for pound boxer in the world. So he's catapulted himself into that sort of thing. And I think from Top Rank point of view, who promote both fighters, they're going to be licking their lips. Like, this is the handing of the torch that, if they were being really honest, they would love. Like, you've now got this brash, confident, almost cocky American who is a lot more marketable than Lomachenko to an American audience. Obviously, like, we always talk about the speaking English thing, but like, he's carried this whole build up in terms of his talk, and his dad's a bit of a character as well. Got like that verbal gift, I suppose you want to call it. Like, there's a lot of charisma about him, as well as obviously being able to do it in the ring. And just going back to what you were saying about like the Comey win, I think the devastating fashion of that almost played into people's hands picking Lomachenko, because it was mightily impressive to get rid of Comey within a couple of rounds, this tough, durable champion. But then there was still that question mark of, well, if he doesn't get someone out of there at a top level, like a Lomachenko, what's he going to do? Is he going to be able to handle it? Is he going to be able to navigate that distance and go 12 with someone? And he's just proven that, like, in abundance. And again, like, we switch our picks in our sort of our predictions based on form and what happens in the ring. And as of right now, he's put himself in that position where you'd favour him against everyone else. Like, again, like the likes of, we mentioned Devin Haney there. Like, I know he's on the DAZN side of things, but him there, like Davis, there's some good lightweights. Obviously, Luke Campbell's fighting Ryan Garcia. December is that one, like later on this year?
Yeah.
There's a lot of and I know like Campbell's in his 30s, but like there's a lot of younger fighters around that hopefully you see them get in and like mix it up. Like Lopez didn't need to take this Lomachenko fight. If you look at Gervonta Davis,
that's true. Like
he's moved up in weights almost alongside Lomachenko, and all the way him and Floyd Mayweather have been saying, "No, like we don't need to fight him yet. We're young. Like Gervonta's a very young champion. Blah, blah. He's only like 22 years of age. He's only 23, and we'll see. It makes sense in the future. We're going to try and build. Blah blah blah." But
do it.
Lopez,
imagine that trilogy.
Lopez has just shown why you take those risks. Like hopefully now the rewards he gets like go and measure up with the risk that he's took, because no one would have sort of, or not many would have criticised him for just like defending his IBF title a couple of times, and as long as he's in competitive fights, then yeah, again, like young champion, blah blah, we'll see what happens. But he was the one who pushed for it and was like talked his way into that fight, got it, and then produced the goods.
Imagine that trilogy between Gervonta, Haney, and Lopez, 3 young Americans. If Gervonta stays on the right path in that, do you know what I mean? That's hellish for America, for stateside boxing. That. What weight Davis Santa Cruz at? Because I'm a bit baffled by that. Is Santa Cruz going up? Like BoxRec lists it as having the world lightweight title on the line, but it also mentions a super feather as well. So like
I think, and I can't remember for sure this, so someone listening probably correct us. I'm sure when it first got announced, it was going to be at the super featherweight limit, or even like a pound or two over.
Right.
But then the lightweight title was also going to be on the line.
Well, BoxRec is listing that. It says in BoxRec. It's a super feather contest, 12 rounds. And underneath that, it's got WBA World Light title and WBA Super Feather title.
So that ties in with what I thought, because I remember like a bit of outrage, a bit of reaction to that. Like it's baffling. Like if you want the lightweight title, you've got to go up. But then, like Davis hasn't really fought anyone at lightweight to get. Like he's got that sort of strap, and they got the belt. But
that's it. Who did he beat again? He knocked. Oh Christ! Who the hell did he beat? He beat Gamboa, didn't he?
Gamboa, so exactly. So Gamboa is now like again naturally a like featherweight or even like round that. You know what I mean? Like. He's fighting Devin Haney next, and he's just sort of he's making his money going where the sort of the money fight is, rather than campaigning at a particular weight that suits him. Like Santa Cruz is nowhere lightweight. He started off down at bantamweight, I think. Like they're all sort of just floating around. It's like almost like, well, who have we got? Like post lockdown, who have we got that we can put in a fight together? It's not one that you think. That's going to make me think Gervonta Davis is an absolute supreme lightweight if he beats him, because it's not actually that lightweight. It's an interesting thing with like Haney Gamboa. Like, yeah, if he should beat him. He's in that position where it's almost lose. If he looks shit against a past his best Gamboa, then you're going to cast doubt on him and just how good he is. If he deals with them and looks good, you think, well, yeah, if you're like near the top sort of 5 in the world, you should be dealing with Gamboa like it's 135 pounds.
It's very interesting. It's another fight to keep an eye on, isn't it? Plenty of good stuff coming up between now and the end of the year, actually. But we'll. Do you want to look back? Do you want to get into it? Do you want to talk last night?
Yeah, we just said off air that. We've got a spare weekend next weekend where we'll look ahead to what's coming up. I know we've just talked a little bit about Davis Santa Cruz there. Yeah. We'll go into a bit more detail with that next week. And we'll spend the remaining time looking back on this weekend, talking about lose-lose situations. Poor Lewis Ritson is seemingly finding himself in one right now.
Is he not?
I actually spoke about this on the Max radio, a little Scottish radio station that's provides online content. We've been on there a couple of times now, and they were asking me about it. And I said that it's a potential banana skin for Ritson fighting Miguel Vazquez, because it's one of those that we've just described there. Like Ritson was expected to beat him. If he didn't, or he didn't look good doing it, then there's potentially going to be a lot of criticism going his way. And that basically is how it.
He
Do you want to just
Honestly,
summarise what happened and how you saw it, and we'll see.
Well, that's it. We will. For me, he was all kinds of wrong for Ritson. He was like Patera again, and you know, a sort of a mover, a boxer, a wily old fox type of fighter who, you know, I'm not saying Ritson can't box, but he's just all his movement and everything was wrong, and he just struggle against. Obviously, that's the second opponent of that ilk that he's fought and sort of struggle against. Like he was a nightmare for him in all the wrong ways. Like he sort of like I'm not how do I word it? You look at the matchmaking point of view and you think, well, who's made that and why did they think it would make for a good spectacle? When do you know what I mean? Like, I get it, it's a good test and it's a name on the record, former world champion and all that. But it, sort of aesthetically, it wasn't, it was always going to be difficult, I guess, for Ritson in that regards. As to the fight itself, I'm not copping out of this, but I wasn't scoring it as such.
I'm going to drag you off the fence,
It was on the telly, it was on, I'm tweeting yous, I'm messaging yous, Matthew Macklin's in my ear, I'm messaging me mates, I'm tweeting on Twitter. Like, I wasn't sitting with pen and paper. Like, on my eyes, I thought Vasquez won the fight, right? I haven't watched it back, which I know a lot of people today on Twitter have, and I'm not.
You told Lewis that?
What? I think Vasquez won it?
Yeah.
No? Well, opinions are opinions, aren't they?
No, we'll get onto that as well. Like, okay, go on.
That was my instinct watching it. But when you, how do you word it? When you revive, if you get rid of the commentary, right, which they had their minds made up from round 4, and if you get rid of your WhatsApp groups, which also have their minds made up, it hasn't won around that, and then you get into that pattern of well, I'm saying he hasn't won around, and I'm sticking to this because I know what I'm talking about, and I'm thinking, Vasquez is winning. God, Ritson's rubbish. He hasn't landed. He hasn't touched him, and all that. And then you sort of, your mind's made up. There, I'm not talking about you, but as a, your bias creeps in. You're watching it with Matthew Macklin bleeding on. You're sort of wanting it to continue how you're watching it, if that makes any sense, because you want to be sort of proved right. So it's a difficult one when you watch it like that. Again, I do think it should maybe be watched with no commentary. Whether they say it's completely different, like Fano did, in the corner, they might have seen Ritson as the one coming forward. You know what I mean? And Vasquez on his bike circling around all night. Maybe they were looking at that because that corner was calmness personified throughout the whole thing. Like mad calm when you think about it. It went against our instinct and most of boxing Twitter's instinct and stuff, apart from a few. But then I've heard today that the DAZN commentary was completely different to that. Nick Harling and Alex Arthur scored the fight completely different to Adam Smith and Matthew Macklin. They had Ritson winning. They noted more of Ritson's come forward type of work compared to Vasquez just hitting on the gloves. So, it is subjective, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
And that's,
if you think Vasquez is
problem for me with the whole system of scoring bouts, and as you said there, our mates have been on us this morning about it, and I've uploaded, is that a thing? Replugged some of our written pieces over the years. Going back to 2017, must have done about 3 or 4 different, trying to do different takes and slants on the controversy with judging and the controversial nature of how subjective it is. It's what you like, it's what you're after. And that, until that gets rectified, we're always going to have issues like this, because in this fight, you had 2 polar opposites in terms of style, in terms of strategy, in terms of tactics. So, to split it down in a really basic sense, you've got Ritson as the come forward fighter. When he landed shots, he's naturally the bigger man, the more powerful, the stronger man. Not many people will be comparing Ritson to Lomachenko, but and not after last night. But there's similarities there. I thought, especially in the early rounds.
Have you watched it back?
I think Macklin even gave Ritson the first round, which I didn't.
I gave Ritson the first round as well.
And he was coming forward, and he was looking to land the jab, but for me, he wasn't doing it enough. And that's not me digging him out. That's not me sitting here slagging him off, saying anything that I wouldn't be saying to his face. Like, if he asks me how I saw the fight, I'll tell him that I thought Vasquez won it. But what was frustrating was that, if you go into that fight watching it and you prefer someone who's just going to come forward, and that's not saying that's what Lewis was doing, but you can't score, to me anyway, you can't score rounds just based on who's coming forward, because if you do that, you're never going to give Vasquez a round, for example, because his style.
But then can you score it on someone running away?
To box on the back foot, to land his shots, and to get out. You can say,
was he landing? Do you think he was landing shots?
He's tapping him. He's not hurting Ritson. He's not landing anything damaging. But that's not within the rules of boxing. That's not the criteria for scoring a fight. And again, credit to Tony Bellew, because he was trying to break it down afterwards. And I think he said he had Vasquez wide, and he sort of said Vasquez was maybe landing 5 or 6 shots that for every one that Lewis landed, and that's obviously not specific. That's not an accurate stat. That's what Tony Bellew was saying, and that's how it sort of was perceived by a lot of people. And he's like, that one solid, hurtful looking jab, or that one right hand to the body, doesn't cancel out 5 little jabs in a right hand. But
is that not the aggregate shots though? If Ritson was throwing more powerful shots, that would probably hurt you.
The whole point. What then does, so if Ritson lands 3 hard, powerful looking shots to Vasquez's 5 tippy tappy ones, is 3 powerful shots better than 5 tippy tappy ones?
You would think so.
Is 5 tippy tappy ones better than 1 powerful one? I don't know. And to be honest, I don't think anyone knows clearly how to score that, because there's not set numbers of punches that equate to certain things in boxing, which is where you then come back to it's what you like. And I think the problem with it is that fight, every round followed a very similar pattern. So you scored a few of those rounds to Vasquez, which I did, I then struggled to see a difference in the sort of pattern. I think Lewis did better later on. He landed a few more shots, but it was that every round sort of followed that very similar trend. There wasn't a lot of difference, and that again comes down to what we're talking about with the corner work there. Either they've got very, very lucky and they've got away with one, which is what a lot of people think, or actually Neil Fannin knew exactly what he was watching. Was very confident, very calm about it. Kept Lewis nice and calm, kept him composed. He wasn't charging in and eating a lot of unnecessary shots. He was taking some on the gloves. He was trying to go about his own work. Yes, there's things that I can sit here and say, oh, well, I would have done that, I could have done that. But I've got just what I said, similar again to Lomachenko.
Do you think you would score differently?
Fannin and the team and Lewis, and that, they know more about boxing than we do. And obviously you can say that to everyone, can't you? You can say, well, any boxing we comment on, they know more than us.
Yeah,
I would be a massive hypocrite if I was sitting here and it wasn't Lewis Ritson. If that was somebody else and I'd watched that fight, there's a very similar example with O'Hara Davis and Vasquez. I thought Vasquez won that fight as well and was unlucky not to get it on the cards. But I just think obviously we've never shied away from the fact that we're sort of personally invested in Lewis Ritson and boxing and wanting the Northeast lads to do well. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to sit here and be objective and call it how I see it.
I need to watch it back because, I've seen a few people sort of revised opinions there on Twitter today. Sam Jones didn't. He said he had 11-1 Vasquez. But, it is. The Steve Wraith said he's watched it back with no commentary. He had Ritson winning 2 without Matthew Macklin sort of bleating on and continuing that. Like you said, though, the rounds did follow a similar pattern. So you're looking for that. You're thinking, Vasquez, box these lugs off. You're seeing that because, not that you want to see it, but that's what you're noticing. Do you know what I mean? You're not, how do you word it? That's ingrained then in your head, isn't it? Or another one for Vasquez, take it off. You're invested. You've seen Patera do it. Yeah. we
when
got
we
stung
talked
with,
about,
we both got stung with Patera though. We both at the arena, and we were thinking, oh, Lewis is doing all right here, until Adam Booth piped up and be like, oh no, Patera's winning this fight. So then we sit there and thinking, oh, okay, so you've seen Lewis get beat like that before, and then it suddenly happened again, and you.
And what I find interesting, like, going back to that one, is there seems to be now this sort of acceptance from well, even at the time there was from Team Ritson and Matchroom, whatever, that was, oh, yep, Big Patera's won that fair and square. Obviously, then issues come to light with weight, moves up in weight, and it's like, right, it's a fresh start. We'll go in a different route, different direction. But even like the Patera fight was a split decision. There was one judge did score that for Lewis, and I think without having watched last night's back, without having ever rewatched the Patera fight, I think the Patera fight was more competitive and closer than the fight last night. Now, again, I should probably be sitting watching those again before making that judgment. But for them to be saying, right, accept we lost to Patera, but they obviously still remain convinced and confident that they won.
It's funny because I would like to watch it back as well. I'd like to watch it back because, like, you know, as I said to you, like, in our group, like, you know, the instinct was that Vasquez had won the fight, which is fine. But it is difficult when, like, you know, it's hard to block the commentary out from Sky. Do you know what I mean? And it sounded like
I just muted half of the time.
And I think, like, I always remember Adam Booth saying once that you should always, if you want to score a fight fairly, then watch it with no sound on, because you are influenced obviously by what they're saying. And you know, it's hard because you can see both sides. Like, obviously the Ritson camp, they're like, for me, Vasquez ran on his bike all night, which I guess they're going to say that, but like, there is an argument for that, I guess, and that's like what you say though. That's what you look for. I always remember Andy Clark or Andy Scott, whichever one it is from Sky. He was on the boxing betting show with Tom Craze, and you know, he looks for something completely different. He looks for more powerful punches, the more punches that cause more damage to your opponent, and the greater weight of aggregate shots. So if you're thinking, oh, the boxing masterclass from Vasquez, hit and not get hit, then I can guess why some people have probably seen it 8-1, because he's just circled around the ring with his lateral movement all night.
I think if you're going to judge your fight, if you're going to sit and score it, you need to look for a bit of both, because
I don't. Do we know how to score a fight?
Go into a fight, like just what I said before, if you go into a fight thinking, right, well, I'm just going to be looking for the bigger punches, then they're always going to come from Ritson, so you might as well just fill in your card.
But do you like
whatever, like 100 to 90 or whatever in favour of Ritson?
But on the flip side, if you like movement,
how many, like, again, what is your threshold? Like, I don't personally think for the powerful shots that Ritson landed, I don't think he landed enough of them. I thought even though Vasquez wasn't doing any damage physically, or not much, and there wasn't as much power in his shots, I think he was more in control. Again, like people saying, oh, Ritson like took the centre of the ring. Did he take the centre of the ring, or was Vasquez happy to give him the centre of the ring to get his shots off and to move around? Like, we'll go around. He went around in circles, and we probably
could go around in circles,
trying to decide on it. But
it's tricky, man. It is tricky.
You can't just say like, oh, and again, like I'd be a hypocrite saying, oh well, you can't just like Lewis obviously put a status on Facebook, which I'm going to talk about with regards to social media and the impact of that as well, because I think that's important to cover as part of this. But he'd said like, oh, you can't win a fight just sort of nicking it and bouncing on the back foot. And when George Groves fought DeGale said the exact same thing. Like, he's like, oh, he's nicked it. Like, I was the champion. He's nicked it. None of those rounds were dominant, and it's that sort of thing. But if your plan is to come in and box on that back foot, like George Groves knew that DeGale was expecting Groves to be the aggressor and was going to give him opportunities to counter. Adam Booth, just mentioned there as well, it was in the corner with Groves. They knew that to beat DeGale, like their best chance of beating DeGale was to completely change their normal style of fighting and to be really patient, throw lots of feints, not throw many punches, and essentially nick those rounds. Like, that was going to frustrate DeGale. That was going to be the best plan A to get the win. And it, obviously, in an ultimately very, very close fight, that they worked for them. They got the majority decision on that occasion. And it's like, like Vasquez isn't going to come in against Lewis Ritson and stand and trade and think, right,
no, obviously not.
I need to throw really hard punches here to get the win. Like that's was never gonna happen.
The gut instinct of 99% of people, myself included, was that Vasquez had won the fight. Like, I haven't watched it back today. I do keep meaning to, but I haven't had time yet to watch it with no commentary on and just take it in again, because there is people out there that do think, like, I've seen a couple of tweets today, like, I don't get what all the fuss is. Someone's just rewatched it there saying he had it a draw with no sound on. Like, you know, like, it's not nowhere near as much as a robbery as people think. Like, and I guess obviously it's the Terry O'Connor card that's standing out, 117, 111. But without him explaining the card, you'll never know that. But you know what I mean? It's
and
like
that brings me on to my next bit. Like, I've only seen a little bit of an IFL video with Robert Smith, and obviously I
haven't seen that yet.
We've been tweeting all day. Our mates have been on at us about, like, it's a disgrace, it's a robbery, all the rest of it. And this isn't just because it's Lewis Ritson. I've said this for a while, like, the word robbery and corruption and incompetence, whatever you want to call it, they all get thrown in. They all get chucked about, especially on social media. And it's hard to pinpoint the individuals normally because of the system and how subjective the criteria is and everything we've just discussed there. However, to see pictures of apparently Terry O'Connor sat checking his phone during one of the rounds is... Has
that been confirmed? Was it his phone? Like, has anyone said it was or not? Like, has anyone said, oh shit, yeah, he's had his phone, sorry.
It hasn't. I know Eddie Hearn had tweeted something saying, like, in brackets, it looks like it is, and if that's the case, he should be suspended immediately, etc., etc. Like, you know what you expect someone to say when confronted with that picture. I think it was Uma, I'm not sure, but one of the IFL lads was interviewing Robert Smith. Only caught a slight little section of it where basically Robert Smith standing there and he's just saying, well, it wasn't that controversial. I'm not going to justify myself to people tweeting after a few beers and on social media posting things. And I don't know what his actual response was to the the suggestion that it was something that looked like his phone. Now, what I would say, regardless of what it is, he should be sitting glued to what's going on in that ring for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Someone tweeted us rather eloquently, dropping a C-bomb, that it was the scorecard that he was electronically filled in or whatever. But again, why are you sitting on that during the round?
During the action, that's strange. You should be glued to that. That should be
watching. Like, how many times have we watched the fight live and you're sort of sitting trying to score it, and then someone talks to you and you turn around, or like we're trying to tweet out an update. You look down at your phone for a second, you look back up and someone's been chinned or like caught a good shot and you didn't see it. Like, if that's the case, you then can't score that as a scoring punch if you haven't seen it. It's like a referee is a football referee. If you don't see a foul, you can't give a red card. Like, you have to be just giving your 100% undivided attention to what's going on in that ring for 3 minutes at a time.
That's it. That is shocking. I know it does often seem to be Terry O'Connor, but like, I've just seen Rob Tebbit tweet there saying there must be an investigation into it and that, and accountability in that. But investigation by who? You know what I mean? You trust an independent body? Who?
Well, it should be the board. The board should be that independent body. Like, they're not independent in that sense, but they should be the ones that are wanting to uphold their reputation and protect their reputation. Whereas what it seems as, they just sort of protect their representatives, their officials. And I'm not saying like throw them under the bus, to quote that little popular phrase that seems to be going about a lot now with boxing and on social media. But they need to be seen to be doing something, and they need to be doing something, and they need to be seen to be doing it as well. Like, they could, for all we know, take Terry O'Connor on Monday, have a little hearing, discipline him, give him a warning, whatever action they want to take. But in such a public sport, in a public arena, if that doesn't then become public, the fans are becoming more and more frustrated. Like, you again linking to football, obviously another high-profile sport that we both follow. If there are any sanctions in place, if a player or a club or whoever gets fined or they've got a suspension for a certain amount of games, you know about it.
Yeah.
In boxing, it is so cloak and dagger, and that comes down to the boxers who apparently have failed drug tests. That gets swept under the carpet. No one outside of the board has a clue what actually goes on in terms of assessment and training and support for these officials. Like, in between the fights, do they actually do anything? Like, no one knows. Like, they could do. They could be absolutely on it. They could be making their officials sit and watch all these different rounds of fights and talking about it. So, this is why I'd score this for this. This is why this should be this. They might be called before a panel and have to justify themselves in their scorecards every time. But if we don't hear about this as the public, if they close ranks and they're very cloak and dagger and protective of themselves and each other, then nothing's going to change, because obviously whatever's happening at the moment isn't working.
Is it even like, has it got the resources to do all these different things, like you say, panels and all that? Is it run mainly by volunteers? Do you know what I mean? That's a whole different discussion, isn't it? To sort of regulate the British Boxing Board of Control. And
like you talk about
like
anything in life, really. It comes down to money, doesn't it? Like, are these referees? Are they like full-time members of staff? Like,
well, exactly.
We've obviously been at the small shows.
No clue.
You see the officials, and as you say, they're mainly just volunteers, people who are sort of doing it for the love of the sport.
Well, that's it.
But then, if they're not regularly like maintained and assessed and held accountable, then
so difficult, like you say.
No one's going to hold that responsibility, are they?
Even going back to the fight, like obviously, like we were talking about Fano before now, he's so calm and like, you know, you're boxing beautifully, cracking for, you know, you've been out for a year, you're doing this, you're doing that, and it's like, it's so tricky, because you feel like that was his 50th title fight as a coach last night, Fano, and you think like he probably knows more about boxing than I'll ever know in my lifetime. Like you said before, if I lived to freaking 200. So, do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, you feel like a bit of a fraud sometimes. Like, oh, we're scoring fights, but do we even know how to score fights? Me and you? Do you know what I mean? Have we done a course on it? Have we read up on it loads? Like, we know what we think we know. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, you might look for aggression or a vague term such as ring generalship, or do you know what I mean? Like, but then when I told you about the man I heard from Sky before, and he's looking completely differently. Well, not completely differently, but he's getting really into it with like aggregate punches and all this different stuff. And did that punch land? Did it hurt his opponent? Did it not? Blah blah blah. And it's got really sort of technical, and like it's so tricky. Do you know what I mean? It's there's a difference between sitting at home with me cans of Stella and me Asda pizza, thinking, like looking down my phone, looking at the telly, Matthew Macklin, looking at my phone, tweeting, WhatsApp group. Oh, good round this, shit round that. Do you know what I mean? Oh, Ritson's not doing that. Ritson won that one. And like after 3-minute round, did you watch all 3 minutes of every round last night? Or were you bantering back and forward with me and Scott and all the other lads? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, again, it's slightly different, isn't it? Normally,
exactly.
Normally, when I sit and score a fight, I'll mute the WhatsApp group or I'll ignore it, and I will sit and like if I'm properly in the zone.
Like, are you making notes? Have you got
I'll normally,
you know what I mean?
I'll normally make like an effort to score one fight on a card, and it's generally one I'm not that bothered about.
Yeah.
Because like with Lewis Ritson, for example, I just want to sit and watch it and I say enjoy it, but sit there nervous, hoping he does the business. But like, yeah, like the criteria, like I've sat and looked up on, because I'm obviously that sad, like I've sat before and looked up online and read like how you should score a fight, etc., and what you're looking for. And then with I can't remember, as you said, did you say Andy Scott or Andy Clark?
Oh, one of the two. God, I get mixed up with both. I think it's Andy. Oh God, one of the two Andys that work for Sky.
Anyway, I'm sure it'll be the same one, because he'd said something about. I've listened to a bit about him talking about scoring, and
it's really good. But he lost me off. He's fucking complicated at times.
And I tweeted him saying like, when I score, sometimes I find it easier to do a minute, like within a round, and almost who wins those minutes, 2-1 or 3-0, or whatever, then like that helps me break it up a little bit, because sometimes I think it's easy to get into a pattern of saying, well, one started the round well, second finished
exactly.
the round well. How do I then split them? So
But
like breaking it up even further. Now that's not an official method or criteria, but it helps me split up that round. And
what he also said was, though, that he watches it. You're basically watching 12 3-minute fights.
Yeah,
each round is a separate fight. Which again, like that brings on my next point, though. But and I'm not having to go at you here or anyone else, but as you sort of, which you may have done that last night, but for the average sort of viewer like myself and someone who's a bit less sort of tuned in, they've had a drink on a Saturday night, and sort of it's probably easy. They're not doing that. So they're just saying, well, that was kind of similar to the last round. Vasquez. That was similar again, wasn't it?
It's what really annoys me.
Vasquez. Haven't given 1 out of 6.
I'm not specifically talking about last night. When people say like, I didn't really score it, but I've got so and so 7 rounds to 5, and you're like, well, no, if you didn't sit and score it round by round, then you haven't got you haven't scored the fight. I can sit and watch a fight and think, yeah, that person won that fight, or that one was whatever. For example, like Lomachenko and Lopez last night, like I sat and watched it this morning, and scored it. But like you could easily say, well, Lopez won the first half of the fight. Lomachenko made it more competitive, and therefore it could be a draw.
That's it. And obviously, I'm not making excuses.
Like watching it and breaking it down, and that's what I was saying earlier about that. The pattern of a fight, is irrelevant to how you're scoring it in the way it should be at the moment. But how many people watch a fight and sort of decide the winner based on because
there should be no pattern really.
Or 10 rounds or however.
There should be no pattern, if that makes sense. It should be each individual round. But again, like you say, I fell in that trap last night of half watching, half tweeting, half talking, and every round looked similar to the last. And like I say, I won't make excuses here. My instinct was that Vasquez won it. But then again, flip it over at the other side. How many times have we sat ringside with people and sort of been in fights and being sort of transfixed by corners, and you're listening to like Dave Binns or whoever it was in the corner, and you're fascinated by the way the trainer's going on and what you can hear and what they're saying and stuff. And it is mad how like a boxing mind and how circumstances can hear things different to you. And
then someone sat the other end of the ring who's here in the corner.
But if you isolate it last night to a fucking dead TV studio or arena or whatever in Peterborough, and like, there's no noise, you've got no crowd noise, no like that. It's just literally almost like a spar. Do you know what I mean? Between Ritson and Vasquez, like fan could be judging that completely differently to how I'm sitting on my settee with me Stella and me mates and me commentary. Do you know what I mean? He's not hearing Matthew Matlin scream on. He's just literally watching what he thinks is Lewis boxing a nice little fight. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, that was one of the issues with the fight camp, wasn't it? The first week, I think it was Sam Eggington's team had said this. Basically, like they could hear the commentary. So then from then on, the commentators were moved a bit further back and behind like perspex screens and stuff, because they were saying it was like affecting. Obviously, again, if you're a fighter and you're hearing that, then it is maybe going to change your mindset.
And again, it's hard. Like,
it's up for debate, but like, Fannin did see it completely differently to a lot.
Massive differently. And I just think, who else was in the corner? Was Davey there as well? Like, were they all there? I don't know, but like, I only really seen Fannin on the telly. But like, again, you looked at it, come on here on our little podcast and sort of like say, God, he got that wrong, because like, who am I to say that he did get that wrong? If you know what I mean, like, it's just
and I agree.
It's so tricky. His boxing mind's
like, while I'm more than happy to sit here and give my opinion and say it as I saw it. And again, I'll go to the gym and have the same conversation with them. Where I do draw the line is, and again, this is not just because it's Lewis Ritson and it's Neil Fannin and it's people we know and respect.
Yeah,
I've said this with any boxer and their trainer. Like, that relationship is so specific and so special to those people. As an outsider, no matter how much boxing I watch, no matter what I think of a fighter and their performance, I would never say, he should leave him, he should be with him, or he should stay with that trainer, he should do this. Because it's not just what you see in the ring. There's so much more to that relationship, professional, personal, however you want to judge it, that goes on behind closed doors. Like,
well, that's where I sort of tried to nip it in the bud on our Twitter last night straight away. Be like, isn't he secret that we're like Lewis and Fano and Jaffa? You know what I mean? Like, we're close to them. Like, that's, and I mean, no apologies for that either. Do you know what I mean? They've been good to us in the last 5 years, and I guess we've been good to them. Do you know what I mean? And I guess it's a friendship. Do you know what I mean? It's someone that you're more than happy to be in the company, and you enjoy going to see them, etc., etc. Like, so I don't know. I just like, and you get the messages coming through like, oh, he needs to leave Fano, he needs to do this, he needs to do that, and you just think, I don't know. I can't really sort of entertain that with when it comes to like the Northeast lads like that, because we're not even impartial because we know them. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, it's not even the Northeast for me. It's honestly not. Like,
yeah,
people on our Twitter were saying today, like, oh, you should go with Booth or Caldwell, who both perfectly good trainers. But why at 27 is him going to Adam Booth going to guarantee like the improvement? He's going to have to upheave, like,
and that's it.
Of going down to London. I'm not saying like fighters shouldn't travel and all the rest of it, because it's what fits that person, like that personality, that boxer. But like, say for example, as another recent example, Anthony Fowler has gone from Dave Caldwell to Shane McGuigan. Now, if you would ask me how highly I rate McGuigan as a trainer, very, very highly is the answer. Like, I think he's one of the best in the country. And looking at the fighters he's worked with, the impact he's had on them, there aren't many that have looked worse under him than with other trainers. And like, obviously when fighters have left, you think, like, have they lost a step, or they're quite as good as they were with McGuigan? But like, if you'd asked me before that, should Fowler have left Dave Caldwell, I'd be saying the same as I am now. Like, it's not for me to say. Like, there was nothing.
No.
That makes you think, oh yeah, like he should be leaving him. Like, yeah, he lost the fight, and like he won a couple, I think, after that under Caldwell. So like, losing that fight, it's like, well, he's lost a close fight against a very good fighter in Fitzgerald. Like, maybe he didn't do what Caldwell was asking or what they'd worked on in the gym. So is that Caldwell's fault?
But then you know what I mean. You like thinking back to the Northeast though. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it is hard to be like, well, not impartial, because we are impartial. I just mean it's hard to be like, how do you work? Like, we've all spent time in these people's companies, and we do like them, like Binsey and that, people like that. Do you know what I mean? You'd walk through a frigging wall for Dave Binns. You're like, he's an absolute diamond of a bloke. So I think people have probably come to the wrong like account trying to get us to join in and be like, oh yeah, he needs to do this, this, and this. Do you know what I mean? I think we've just got probably a bit too much respect for the folk, especially up here, who we know. Do you know what I mean?
Like, 100% like respect them, and yeah, like, there's no way anyone in the Northeast we're going to sit and slag off, because we take people as we see them, as we find them, and to a person, they might be slagging us off behind our back, but to our face and the way we get on with them, and we're in fairly regular contact with a selection of them. Like, got nothing but praise for them. But what I'm saying is, it's not just like a Northeast bias because, oh, well, we know them, so I'm not going to slag them off.
No.
For me personally, and you might disagree with this, like, whoever it is, the relationship between a boxer and a trainer, that's one thing I can't really give my opinion on, because it's not something I see out like playing out in public. If I watch a fight, I can comment on that and say how I think it's gone, who I think's won or lost, what that I think in my very limited knowledge of the sport or limited experience compared to those in it, what they could have done differently or what I've seen. And they might agree, they might disagree, whatever. It doesn't really bother me, to be honest. I'm doing, like, we do BBB and we started this for us. Like, we enjoy doing it. Like, it's a vehicle for us to talk about a sport that we love and that we're passionate.
Well, that's it. And it's a bonus that, you know.
For example, there's Deontay Wilder's got rid of Mark Braylen from his camp, who was the one who basically threw in the towel and pulled him out of the Fury fight. And people have been going to town on it. Oh, it's a stupid decision. Like, he's the one who he's saved Deontay. Like, the other one's just a yes man. Blah blah blah. And it's like tend to lean to agree towards that from what I've seen. But if he's got someone in his camp that he doesn't trust to make the decision he would make, or, you know, like, If he went out in his shield and get absolutely sparked out, which I think he would have done had that continued, like that's his prerogative. And yeah, it's hard to. I think because it's not a public thing, like it's not something you can say based on any fact or anything other than what you've seen in that corner and what you've seen in that fight. And like, yeah, you might disagree with Fannon's assessment on it, like a lot of people did, but ultimately he knows Lewis better than
anyone else, basically,
in terms of a boxing sense, and very well probably better than most in a personal sense as well.
And he knows he's boxing.
He might have been sitting there thinking, hang on, like we are losing, like this is really close, but actually I just need to calm Lewis down. I don't want him to overcommit and lose his shape and his composure. I just want to keep going and sort of box himself into the contact. Like there's so many different.
And he sort of got it right. You might not think.
I was very surprised at the outcome. Like I looked in playing. Vasquez was like 3-2.
No, I know. That it is, but like when you think about it, like how it's gonna, he's not. He's in. I'm not in his defence because I don't need to defend Neil Fannin. He's more capable of defending himself. I just mean for people out there that you message us and different messages last night. Oh, he needs to leave his trainer and he needs to do this. And God, who is his trainer? I've never heard of it. He's not a name. He's not a Joe Gallagher. He's not Shane McGuigan. He doesn't get IFL sticking the microphone in his face. He's not a Steffi Bull who makes his mouth go and does press conferences next to his fighter. And look at me, it's the Neil Fannin show. Like he's far removed from that. He's not a national name, so people think, oh, that's a bit shit from Ritson. Who the hell is that in his corner? Oh, he needs Adam Booth. He needs Dave Cole. You know what I mean? He needs a Sky trainer that's always on Sky every week, and do you know what I mean? And that's like.
Yeah, and that's all they're basing that on. The people that are mentioning those names, that's what I'm getting at. Like they're just basing it on the fact that these trainers are a higher profile.
It's a funny one because we're football fans, and I'll sit there and go, well, I reckon Newcastle should sack Bruce, which I do. And you know what I mean? And I can easily chip in with football, like, I fucking sell him, sack him, useless him.
But boxing, what you see, you're basing that on the results, aren't you? You're looking at
I'm hesitant
results
to do that in
and
boxing.
Performances. Like,
I'm hesitant to do that in boxing though with fighters because, like you just said, like, don't know, like you said about
BBB, because like your manager is obviously controlling that team of 11 players. Like, it's impossible that he's going to keep all the players happy and all the players motivated and what have you. But with a boxer and a trainer, there's like, I'm guessing, it's a much closer relationship. There's much more dependence on it. Like, especially now in football, teams change the managers fairly regularly. Whereas in boxing, if you're going from one trainer to the next, I think you need that stability a bit more.
And I guess, like you're saying, like, time with BBB and stuff, and one of the plus sides of it is that we've been welcomed into some gyms and that, and it is this fascinating environment to be in. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've never set foot in a boxing gym in my life up until 5-6 years ago, but I absolutely buzz every time we go to one. Do you know what I mean? Just seeing the sort of the inner like mechanisms and how it works and what makes people tick and what they're doing that day and all that. Do you know what I mean? And like, it is fascinating, and it's sort of still a bit of an alien environment. You still walk in thinking, Christ, what the fuck am I doing here? Do you know what I mean? But I don't know. I guess that's sort of
in there, like the environment of it.
Seeing
like, that. Again, Dave Caldwell is like perfectly good coach. He's got a good boxing trainer. Like he's worked with champions. Obviously, he got Bellew, like world champion, McDonald's to a good level. But what's to say?
You can't win them all, can you? He's not.
Yeah, what's to say other than the fact that he's been on Sky and he's obviously like well established within Matchroom that him and Lewis would get on personally. They would get on well. Like that. They would gel as a trainer and as a boxer. Like there's not.
I think people forget Lewis had a national trainer. Lewis went up to Glasgow under Billy Nelson. Do you know what I mean? Like, who took Mickey Burns to the absolute lot, basically. Like he's been there and done that. He's got out of the northeast, and he sort of don't think he particularly enjoyed it for a number of reasons.
What a lot of people don't seem to know is like he's absolutely thrived under Fannin and working with Fannin across that British title run, and like just his rise to prominence. Like, yes, you know what I mean? That's come off the back of him being at home and being settled and being in the area. Like it's just seems to me, anyway, it just seems like an absolute knee-jerk reaction of people who don't really get what he's about, to just sort of link him with all these other trainers. And again, you hear it in football, don't you? And it's like, oh, sack him, manager in. Like, it's just opinion. Like, it's opinions at the end of the day, which Lewis obviously mentioned on that Facebook post, and like we've shared that through our social media. Like, everyone is
funny, it is
opinion, but
they are.
What I want to question is like the mentality of someone to sit there the day after a fight or the night of a fight and message him directly, or like message like his relatives.
Did you see that one about his 11-year-old niece? That's incredible. That people gone.
I don't understand what goes through someone's head.
No,
we've talked little bits about this in the past, but we've never really experienced trolling or like people insulting us. Like we disagree with people on social media all the time, but we both try and sort of do it respectfully and put our opinion across, welcome that debate and a difference of opinion. But like we said right at the start of this conversation, like if Lewis asks me, I'll give him my honest assessment of it, and he can sit and listen to this if he wants, but I'm not going to go out of my way to go and tell him last night. Like, what goes through? I don't understand.
See, I guess I'm not different, but like, I guess
different.
I am that. No, what do I mean is that I guess to some people, Christ, if I'm giving us a bit of credence here, is that we are a bit of a gateway to North East fighters because we've banged the drum. We're from Gateshead, do you know what I mean? And we've sort of, like I said earlier, we've sort of banged that North East drum for 5 years now, do you know? And like, as I say, we made friends. I would call some of them friends without a doubt up here through that. Do you know what I mean? Like Binsey, Tom Bins, Owen Ray. You can name loads of names that are just like.
No, you're gonna get bollocked now for the ones you miss out.
No, like fucking Mal Gates and go. You know, there's absolutely loads of good people up here that have like sort of, I don't want to say taken us under their wing, but made it fucking easy for us to get access to people and like welcomed us into whatever you want to call it up here, the scene or something. Do you know what I mean by that though? And I make no apologies for like, I don't know, like defending North East people, bigging them up, giving them press, like everything, because like that's been probably for me one of the best parts of British Boxing Blog. Like not just being on Twitter under like a nameless account, but actually like getting out there and meeting people and speaking to them and interviewing them and like see what makes them tick. So I make no apologies for sort of being a Ritson defendant, because you know he's right what he says today. Like people might not want to hear that, and they might think, "Oh, look at BBB again, sticking up for Ritson." But without him, North East Boxing's on its absolute arse of Matchroom and Sky and any sort of night out with the arena. Like, do you know what I mean by that? And he's right for it, and people probably don't want to hear that. But like, without that sort of resurgence and that like lightweight running went on, then none of the sort of shows up here would have followed. Do you know, like, so he's done a lot, and like he said on his status last night, like, what was it? Or today, like. Where the hell is it? Oh, I've pretty lost it. I had it up ready there to go. Like 5 to 6 years as a pro, he's fought on Sky 12 times, won 5 titles, British title faster than anyone else, ranked number 2 in the world by WBA. And then people say he should leave his trainer. And as he said, as soon as he gets beat Matchroom, that's it. They go. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, from the North East angle, like he's the biggest draw. And I think what he's probably found out today is that he's now there to be shot at, which he probably hasn't had that before, and even when he got beat off Patera, he probably hasn't had that sort of level of like, how do you word it?
He's won well. People didn't think he did. Like if he didn't get that decision last night,
hard lines
would have got a bit more sympathy and like almost. Don't get me wrong. There's still been armchair critics coming out the woodwork saying like he should sack off his trainer and all the rest of it. But like that to me was it's that sort of. There's a lot of anger against the judging and against the system that he's bearing the brunt of.
Well, I put a tweet out last night saying I was pleased for Lewis, because, and that is only from a total personal point of view, because like you said, like if you were closer to them, you know what he's, you know, away from his family, blah, blah, blah. Anyone needs the sob story in that. But, you know, it's been a frustrating year since he last fought, I guess. And like, I could separate Lewis from the scorecard, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Like, but people go, what are you saying well done for? Why are you pleased for him? Fuck off. And like, proper getting annoyed with us. I was like, you've totally misread me intentions of the tweet. There's a difference between like saying, oh yeah, sort of well done to your pal, and then but I can also stand here and say Terry O'Connor's a knobhead. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between separating the fighter. Like, loads of people have said it, Barry Jones, Anthony Fowler, blah, blah, blah. He didn't score it. He didn't get Terry O'Connor's pad and rate 117, 111. He's just in the ring. Do you know what I mean? If anyone's got anger from last night, then you misdirect it, taking it out on either the boxer, the coach, his niece, or whatever you want. Take your anger out on British Boxing Board of Control and one judge in particular, I guess.
Wow, there's another judge had him winning, though.
No, that's it. I know, but
there's two of them. I think if you disagree with that,
there is two. I know.
Again, and this is the issue is, I think a lot of fans will have, and we've talked about the divide between those in boxing and those who watch it and enjoy watching it. You've got the likes of like Neil Fannin, his coach, who he obviously trusts and respects implicitly, telling him thinks he's win the fight. You've got then two judges who've obviously given him the fight and decided that he's won. Like, he's just come out of the ring, got interviewed. He's obviously going to be like, well, yeah, me and my team, we thought I've won. Like, under no point in that fight was he physically in bother getting hurt. So he's done 10 rounds without really like any sort of issue. Like, 12, sorry, I don't know. I can't even remember how many rounds it was now. Like, you know what I mean? He's come through that. And actually, it was like a fairly routine sort of, not the most entertaining fight. Got through it onto the next one.
Turned his phone onto an absolute torrent of, like, you know, he was trending #1 in the UK last night, and like it was just mental. Like, he's probably, as I said to you earlier, like, just for a lad from Forest Hall who's just been, and I guess once you're at that match with bubble and you're back up the road, you turn your phone on. Probably Joel also be going through the same today. You know what I mean? Maybe you Tommy Ward, like, you turn your phone on and thinking, how the hell do I deal with this? Like, am I equipped to deal with this? Do you know what I mean?
No, like, and that's why, like, if I was in that position, like, it's the double-edged sword of social media, innit? There's two sides of the coin. Like, you've got the side that they're going to be getting now, where they haven't performed as they wanted or haven't been as dominant. Like, there's the three of them are going to be in a similar position, like you've just said. But they've all used social media and that thing to build their presence as boxers should be, and like it's a useful tool for them to build their profile and to boost themselves across the fans. But then, is it worth like that side of things? Like,
it's tricky. I know it is, but you've got to take a chance boxing, innit? At the end of the day, I guess you're gonna get beaten, you're gonna get hurt. But
the thing with Lewis going forward, he's obviously he's maintained his ranking, getting that win, and like that's obviously going to be a route they're going to go down. Again, I'd mentioned on Thursday on the radio that I don't think he's at that level of a Josh Taylor, but he's quite lucky in the sense that Josh Taylor is now going to try and unify the division and then probably move up. So there's a chance belts are going to get scattered, and I'm not saying this as a boxing fan, because as a boxing fan, you want one man in that game that is going to be like the man, the champion. We've talked about this before. But from his point of view and from a selfish point of view, he's in a great position to potentially get himself a world title, whether people think he deserves it or not, people think he's good enough or not. Like,
yeah, he's not going to turn around and go, I'll just fight Harvey Davidson because people wants to. Do you know what I mean? Like, why would he drop sort of back down to British level at this point?
But also, I think he's shown that if he's in there with someone who can box on the back foot and is slick and it's awkward, he could be in for a long night. Again, I think with the right matchups and the right opponents, he could be in some very entertaining fights and get some very impressive wins.
Yeah, definitely. Like the Robbie Davis one, do you know what I mean? Like, I was like, he was European. People probably want to see that tear up from Ritson, and I think that's where he probably struggles, like you said, that boxer mover type of thing. And like, he probably would have been best off last night for people of someone who will just come forward and try and smash them and hit them, smash them back, and here we go, oh, Ritson's never done when Ritson's in there. But because it was sort of like a new Ritson or shades of Patera Ritson where he sort of struggled, then he's like you said, like if he'd got beat last night, I guarantee you every comment on his status today would have been, oh, hard luck, Lewis, you'll be back, mate. Oh, plenty more chances and all that shit, back to the arena and all that. But now because he's won a fight that a lot of people say he hasn't won, he's sort of it's now, oh, fucking shit him. And then they'll sort of call him out on it, like, you didn't win that one, mate, and message his partner and all that. And, like, I don't know, like, it's people probably wanted him to get beat. If that makes sense, it's easier to be like, I don't know, as if they're annoyed at him for getting the win, that for some reason, which isn't his fault. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Like, that's exactly it. I think there's definitely an element of that. Like,
there's a lot of hypocrites though as well. People will be on these stages have probably been the same people that's been to the arena singing 2 and 2 and Black My Army for the last 3 or 4 fights. So you just cannot win them all, can you? But I guess
and that's the thing. Like, that's why what we've just said there. Like, we're always respectful with it, and like, I wouldn't say anything to anyone that I wouldn't say it to their face.
No, absolutely not.
Like, yeah, like, I'm not going to go out my way to tell someone that they've lost a fight or whatever, but if they ask what I thought, then I'll give my honest opinion, and like, I'm confident enough to do that on Twitter, on Facebook, on social media, on podcast, in person, like, wherever. Whereas I guarantee, like what you've just said there, a lot of them will be slagging them off and digging them out, and then they wouldn't say that. Like, if they met him, they'd be getting a picture with him and shaking his hand and that.
Well, that's what I mean, and that's why I sort of just started getting there last night, and like, I don't know, we're quite a loyal bunch up here. Do you know what I mean? And we've been, I guess, BBB and like the Ritson journey sort of ran parallel, if that makes sense, without making sound like knobs. But you know, as well as that, you know, how long ago was it now? We sat in Forest Hall, buddy. I want to say a boardroom. Do you know what I mean? And like, you know, we've sort of, you know, he's been at our house. He's done podcasts with us a lot. You know, obviously,
I was there when he won his Northern Area title. Like.
Well, that's it. We've been through the whole journey, I guess, together. And like, I just think, like, you still back your own. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I make no apologies for sort of banging that Northeast drum, because without it, we wouldn't get half the coverage we've had. We wouldn't have met half the people we've had. Wouldn't do half the numbers we do or whatever. Sort of without them, because that's, you know, we're from here. You know what I mean? Like, so again, I mean, like, I was buzzing for Tom Hill's fight today, for hell's sake. You know, I was gutted, but I was generally gutted that Tom Hill and Rafferty got called off, because he's a Northeast lad and I've got a lot of time for him. So it's like, I don't know, and I think obviously accounts like ours and Boxing UK and that, people might sort of gravitate towards Ritson and like Northeast lads, because that's just where we're from, and we make no like apologies for that and stuff. But I think, you know, like I said before though, like, it's old news by Tuesday, and that's when I'm going back to these scorecards. Like I was just replying to Rob Tebbutt before. He was like, God, I think he had spare a thought for Miguel Vazquez today and all that, and the life he could now have. And I was like, aye, Rob, but, and I'm not making excuses because it's Ritson, but for Vasquez last night, that's John Ryder, that's Mohamed Mamoon, that's, come on, you could think of 5 more from the top of your head, you. Like, where'd you go with it? Do you know what I mean? Like, an independent inquiry or a review are just empty words at this point. Like, I just think boxing moves so fast. Like, by Tuesday, Wednesday, boxing media outlets are into another fight week. Eddie Hearn's attentions have gone somewhere else. The board's doing something else. And it's all news again. At the minute, for me, it's just Twitter outrage, and that's all it is. And, like, almost like the Daniel Kinahan thing. That's exactly what that was for 3 days. Oh my God, what a disgrace! He's back. Now he's gone again. No one gives a shit. And that's not me washing my hands with it, because I just don't know what the answer is. And I just think, like, you know, Eddie Hearn on that interview with Coogan last night was going, oh, it's bad for the sport, and it's pissed me off that it's so bad. Is it bad for the sport? The sport's still going, it's still taking over. Same every week, same people tweeting away on Twitter, talking themselves through fight nights, looking forward to this, plugging this, making a living out of boxing, this, and like, is it bad for the sport, or are we just in a sport that has human error, then judges, drug money, and whatever else in it? Do you know what I mean? Like, how bad is it for the sport? It's been like this since day one. It hasn't put us off. We're still here 5-6 years down the line, and so is everyone else. Every other media outlet, and boxing people and fans, and you say it's bad for the sport. It was trending on bloody Twitter last night. It can't be that. It's bad, but is it that bad really? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think it's just that Twitter outrage. That's exactly what we do when stuff like this goes on. Reach for our phones. We've done it. We do it. Mohamed Mamoon, I was disgusting. It was like incandescent, like absolute joke. You can't tell me you're going to sit at work on Wednesday, Thursday, going, hey, the life Miguel Vazquez could have had. Do you know what I mean? Like,
no, you look ahead to the next fight, don't you? Like you've just said there.
You bang into Usyk's aura, and you bang into something else, and you want to go to Usyk. Do you reckon Povetkin will be white again? What? Oh, that's a cracking fight on the MTK show, and it moves so fast that it's 24 hours of outrage, and then it's on you go. That's the nature of the sport, and football was like that for years. Like Sky and that banging on about stuff. Refereeing errors give Sky something to talk about on Monday Night Football for absolutely years. Give us
look at VAR, like VAR, like.
Is that the angle you want to go down? Like, are we going to go computerized and be
I'm probably the only person in the world who likes VAR, so it
is. You get used to it, like you get used to anything else. But it's so difficult because these are fighters' lives on the line, and fighters' incomes and livings, and I'm getting that, and I'm not brushing over it. But
I think that's the issue that really rankles with people both inside and out. Like, if someone you're invested in and involved with is on the wrong end of that decision, you target it and you focus on it, and it becomes more of an issue for you. Like, without going too big into the bigger picture, the people who've been impacted by COVID-19, who've had someone that has died, they're naturally going to have more passionate feelings and more of a, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, like more of an association with it and care more about it than, like, it's easy for someone who's not been impacted and not lost turn around and say, oh, well, it's only 1% of X amount of people that die from it. If that was one of your relatives who died from it, you'd turn around, oh, well, we haven't done enough. We should be in lockdown again. We should be protecting the vulnerable. And it's very that human sort of selfish element.
It is.
Like, yes, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, if you're Miguel Vazquez now, you're thinking, oh, well, I could have been in like number 2 with the WBA. I could have been in there with like a potential world title.
Absolutely. Same with Mahmoud. Same with Mohamed Mahmoud against McKenna. That was the last blatant one I could think of. There's probably been more since then. Like, but that was the last one that stunk for me. Like, in my head, anyway. I'm missing some obvious ones. But like, was Eddie Hearn's as raging as that when John Ryder basically beat Callum Smith? Probably not. Do you know what I mean? Like, at the minute, like, I've seen a few suggestions, like, why don't we do open scoring, or why don't the corners get told some results after every 3 rounds and all that? But I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm just a bit beat with the whole thing at the minute. It's just empty Twitter outrage for me, unless someone can really come up with something better, or unless the British Boxing Board of Control do some sort of inquiry or regulated. And
this is the thing, like the people that you've just mentioned there, the board said they've basically come out and said there's nothing controversial about it. Like, they're going to, I think, look into the fact that who's using his phone, but like, other than like the actual scoring side of things, there was just like, yeah, there's nothing controversial. Like, we'll leave it on, blah blah blah. Then like Eddie Hearn in this example, obviously it's happened on his show. He's come out and said he's not happy with X, Y, and Z, but he doesn't like to really put pressure on the board. Those that are in charge, like, don't do enough to solve it anyway. So how are like it's how are the people like up? It's
hard because it's hard to whip yourself into a frenzy for it if you like, and we do, like, oh Christ, I'm sort of in one now, but I just mean, like, I don't know, it can like, I don't know, how do I word it? And I'm not digging Rob Tebbett out here, but as an example, like, he was absolutely raging about it, and he still is, but like, his work goes on. He's still making a living in boxing, and boxing goes on. Like, you can't sort of, I can't be asked to get all dramatic, like, boxing's finished, it's a disgrace. And maybe for some people it is. Maybe some people won't.
Rob's a good example, because in his interviews he does like hold the likes of Eddie Hearn to account. He'll ask questions and so, like, refer back to previous answers where they've maybe contradicted him, where he's maybe contradicted himself, and he's got a good relationship with Mauricio Suleiman and the WBC, and he asks him about different things that like fans want to know. But it's almost like when the politicians are getting questioned and they ask these questions and they sort of give it half an answer, or they'll try and bluff the way out of it, and they'll say something, and then, as you say, like 2 weeks later, something else, there's another issue, there's another fight on the horizon that they can be pushing and promoting. And like, how many different things have there been where people, like fans, haven't been pleased about it? Like, go back to like the Dillian White B sample, for example. Everyone was up in arms and raging about it, and then like, it doesn't get mentioned. And if
that's it.
And ask him about that, you'd be like, oh, well, like, why are you dragging that up? Why are you obsessing with that or whatever? And
like, That's it, because 75%
I'm not just
of
saying
our
that any hate, by the way, because people accuse us of loving Matchroom. People accuse us of slacking them off. So I can't win. He's just a very topical, high-profile example.
No, and I'm not on the defensive because it's Ritson that's being affected by, got the lucky win. I just mean, like, a little bit. But I mean, like, 75% of our work's on Twitter, so I don't want to be like, it's just social media. But, like, there's a lot of outrage in boxing. Like you just said there, how many people bang on about Dillian Whyte's drug tests or Tyson Fury's or Huey Fury's or, like, do you know what I mean? Or, MTK's, it's bloody blood money, it's blood money, but they'll still be tweeting their way through Jay Howard's Braithwaite tonight. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of proper fake outrage in boxing, and it's like, to me, unless, someone's going to come up with some sort of, like, massive plan. I know there's petitions there to sack Terry O'Connor, like, however. But, we can, it is what it is. It's just the day after outrage, which will rumble on and probably rumble on maybe through this week because there's nothing else coming up. But the world keeps turning, boxing keeps turning. It's so cyclical as a sport, and the cycle just will continue and continue. And you know what I mean? The attention turns to Crawford, Brook, and Inoue, and fucking whoever else is coming up between now and the end of the year, Usyk, and all that lot, and who's Fury going to face, and, like, it just moves so fast. And I just totally beat the whole judging thing. And I don't know if it's just me. Do we just all accept a way in a sport with human error and dodgy bastards? Do you know what I mean? And just move on, and that's the sport you're dealing with. And if that's the sport you don't like, then go and watch another one. You know what I mean?
I think we do for now, because we'll be wrapping this up. But if anyone's listening and they've got some ideas, because we are all ears for solutions to the judging problems, to
that's it.
Whatever you think is wrong with boxing. Like, we try and give our answers, but actually it'd be good to hear from people who are listening. So, like, if you're listening on YouTube, drop us some comments. If not, hit us on Twitter at Brit Boxing Blog, British Boxing Blog on Instagram and Facebook.
It's quite a passionate podcast today, wasn't it?
It is. It's been fun. I think I need to just sort of detox a bit and maybe have some time
away. No, it's good to just get things off your chest from, like, like last night and today, and I don't know, I was up to all hours last night just on Twitter, and but Twitter just goes mad, and arguing away and debate, not arguing, but, like, just sort of trying to have a good discussion, which I think we always do.
Too hard to get your point across in limited characters, though. It's good to have a little podcast just to vent.
No, it is just to get it off your chest. But I guess, and we haven't even mentioned a lot of the other fights from last night, and like, massive shouts to Ryland Charlton, to Mark Leach, to even little Thomas Asomba, who fought a hell of a fight against Tommy Ward. Commiserations to Joe Laws, people like that, you know what I mean, who had an absolute nightmare of a night. But I'm sure he'll be back, and Tommy Ward will go on to bigger and better things as well. Like, just a mad night of boxing. And then you wake up to the news that Lomachenko got beat as well, and you're like, strange day as well. Newcastle got pumped 4-1 as well. So, you know what I mean? It's like
some normality then.
It was just a weird day yesterday, but I'm sure the dust will settle soon, and the fallout will continue for a few days. But from our part, onwards and upwards. Do you know what I mean? Thanks to everyone that's sort of engaged with us this weekend as well. Some of the posts, which they do tend to do in, like, Ritson Fight Weeks and that, have gone, especially we weren't even there, but, like, some of the stuff that we've done is, got some good sort of feedback and good banter and that, and I guess that's what it's about at the end of the day. So thanks everyone.
We'll move on. We'll look ahead. There's the MTK one later tonight, which we'll be trying to catch up with.
Last
couple of fights from round 9 of Round for Pound, and then next week we'll do a podcast looking ahead to Usyk, Chisora, Davis, Santa Cruz, Inoue, Maloney, which all feature on round 10 of Round for Pound. We'll maybe have a look through those fights in a bit more detail, do some predictions, and
absolutely
get everyone pumped and ready for those.
Look forward to it, man. Look forward to it. Thanks again for the rants.
Right,
comes in handy, doesn't it? It's like
just wind you up and let you go.
No, I enjoyed it. Right, cheers, Andrew. Thank you, mate.
See you later, mate.
Bye.